Hi there, it's Nichol Spohr and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be creating some spring flowers cards with the spring flowers showcase using new stamps, dies, stencils, sentiment strips, all of that good stuff from the Simon Says Stamp Born to Sparkle release, which is live right now. So there's so many great things in this release, and when I get the products, I generally kind of break them out into how I think I would use them. And in this case, of course, with it being spring and everything, there are so many good florals. So I kind of pulled some of my favorites and decided to do a spring floral showcase. So these cards are not going to be created the same. I did try to keep within the same color family just to be consistent today, but I wanted to show a lot of the new product. That's why this is a showcase. So we are starting out with this gorgeous new background stamp, and we're going to be using one of my very favorite techniques. This is called the Spring Blooms background stamp. And what I love with a design like this in a background stamp, and generally I tend to gravitate towards the florals with this technique, but you could do it with a lot of different background stamps. I love to color the stamp with the Tombow dual brush markers. If you need to reactivate the ink because it will start to dry, you can huff on it to re-moisten it. I find that doesn't work that great. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm not full of enough hot air. Ha ha, I'm just kidding. I don't know. You can do that. I generally like to mist it with a mini mister though. Be careful with that, and I'm really going to show you why, because I almost ruined this before I even got started. But I generally like to kind of color a section and then mist it and stamp. I did it a lot of different ways today just because I'm covering such a big surface area. This is an entire A2 size panel, 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. I did that first corner. I wanted to see if it was going to look good, and then I went and I'm just coloring in these different areas with my markers. I have listed the color combinations across the top of the screen. I am moving back and forth quite a bit. Here's where I about messed up. I do want to interrupt that just a second. I added too much water. You can definitely see I added too much water. I went ahead and wiped down the stamp. I know you guys have mentioned this because I have really been trying to leave in some of those mistakes and boo-boos that happen and how I fix them, because it happens to all of us. And because it happens to all of us, I always love to be real with you guys and tell you this is how I fixed it, or it was unfixable. I had to scrap that and start over. I did not scrap this. Even though it looks like this, I'm letting it dry because it has a lot of water, remember. I dried my stamp, and then I just went ahead and started coloring in some other areas, and then I started adding ink to those areas that are really way too watercolored out, because see in that upper left corner how it's a little bit more defined? That's because I didn't add near the water that I did. I think I did 3 spritzes when I made that mistake. I don't know why I did that. I should always just do 1 and see if that stamps it. You can always re-moisten if you need to. But because the cardstock is a little wet from the water, I'm really not having to add any water to my stamp right now. So I'm adding color and then just stamping. That's all I'm doing because there's water already on the cardstock. So while it's still wet, I'm just going to go ahead and just stamp this stuff and color it away. I will say I was talking to my friend Lori Willison while I was doing this card. So little shout out to Lori. But we were visiting and I just was coloring away. It really went super, super fast. So you'll notice there's some areas that aren't as great. Just go ahead and stamp them again. I'm going to do that in a lot of areas. You can notice where I've started to add color. I did another layer on top of those areas that were way too faded or watercolory looking. I want to add a little more definition to them. The imperfection is the beauty of this, but I also think the beauty is all of the different colors, it ends up looking like a piece of pattern paper. I think that's what I love the most, is just pulling each of these little pieces out. And I'm keeping my embellishment or sentiment for this card to a minimum. This beautiful background is going to be the focal point. And I am just going to keep building that color. I have sped up the video a lot. This does take some time. Like I said, I was visiting with a friend. It went really quick. So that's one of my favorite things to do. I will watch TV. I will listen to a podcast, an audiobook, music, whatever you enjoy listening to. It makes it go faster, but this was a very enjoyable process. So if you haven't tried this technique, I would love to hear if you do end up trying it and kind of what you think the results are. Now, I know I'm going to get this question because I get it all the time when I share a card where I've done this technique. Do the Zig Clean Color Real Brush Markers work? I have tried them. I didn't like the results quite as much. That might just be me. If you have them, you can definitely try them. Now, if you have the distress markers, I have had good results with that technique, with those. I don't use mine very much anymore. Unfortunately, mine really, a lot of them have dried out. So I don't use mine a lot, but I have used them in the past and they will work well too. I know somebody else asked me about, I'm probably going to say it wrong, Arteza. I hope I'm saying that right. I don't personally have them. I have never tried them, so I can't say. So if someone has, please drop me a comment down below here and let everybody know what, you know, the results have been for you, because I would love to hear that. I am using what I have, but if you have another kind of marker, give it a try. There is no harm in trying it. I will tell you, this will not work with alcohol ink markers. That's going to be your Copics, your Spectrum Noirs, things like that. They are alcohol ink markers. They do not reactivate with water. They dry very, very quickly. They are going to probably stain your stamp. So do this with a water-based marker, watercolor type marker, and you will come out with similar results. It makes it look like you've watercolored, which for me is a big benefit because I could never freehand watercolor a card like this. And so I love the results. You'll notice some of the leaves are really light green because that's that chartreuse. And then I'm taking the sap green and just kind of adding more definition. The magic with this, I think, is the layering by adding in some extra color. And when I was finished, my stamp cleans up beautifully. I did not have any staining. Sometimes with some reds, I'll have some staining, but my stamp came completely clean with a little stamp cleaner and a microfiber cloth. So we have just a few more little areas. I really wanted to show the whole process and just kind of how it all came together. Now, one of the things I'm doing today is I am creating coordinating envelopes for all of my cards. I definitely would not do this for an envelope. I know someone left me a comment and said that they had been enjoying my coordinating envelopes because I tend to make them pretty simple and something that's not super time consuming. That is completely my goal. And I'm so glad that you guys are noticing that, because while I would love an envelope that looked like this, I don't want to spend that much time on something that is going to get tossed. But I do love the look of a coordinating envelope. So we're just going to stamp an all over design. And I have a fun little tip for you when we get to that here at the end of this video. We'll create all of our envelopes at the end. I am creating all of my backgrounds first today, and then we're going to add all of our sentiments, and then we will create our envelopes. So now that this background is about done, we are going to do our slimline envelope or pardon me, envelope. How about card panel next? And that is going to be die cut using a Lawn Fawn Slimline die so that we have some stitching detail. And I really wanted an A2, gosh, you guys, I cannot talk today. I really wanted a slimline background that covers the entire slimline size, which is 3.5 by 8.5 inches. So that is where we are going to start with our second background, and this one is going to be stenciled. So I've started with my background. I masked off the edges from the stitching line to the edge of the panel with a little tape, and then I am taking these Distress Ink colors and adding color. This is the XL Rose Bouquet stencil. So there is a Rose Bouquet stencil. I absolutely love that stencil. I think it's beautiful. And now there's an XL version, which of course is great for our slimline style cards. Now, what are these little rainbow blenders, may you ask? They are brilliant. Oh my gosh, maybe one of my favorite things from the release, you guys. It's this little pack of rainbow blenders. They're like little finger blenders. It's not a little foamy blender. It's a little mini brush blender. Look at how I'm not having to mask off any of those extra areas around the flowers to keep the color in that area because they're so tiny. Then they are really compact because they stack one inside of another, and then they go in this little tube. Oh my goodness, I am in love with this. I think it is amazing. And like I said, one of my favorite top picks from the Born to Sparkle release. So I love that they're rainbow colored. You can just grab the one that goes with the color that you're needing. And I went ahead and did my light version first on everything. So light versions for purple is shaded lilac. Then for the light pink, we have Kitsch Flamingo. We have the, gosh, why can I not talk today? Twisted Citron for the light green. And then Squeezed Lemonade for the yellow. To layer then on top for our purple flower, we're going to use Seedless Preserves. I kind of did it in sections because it really made sense to me that way. And that way I made sure to touch on each of them to get that darker color. Then we have our darker pink, which is Picked Raspberry. That's on top of the Kitsch Flamingo. On top of the Twisted Citron, we have Mowed Lawn. And I pulled all of these colors to really be similar to that first card. So all of my color choices here were definitely chosen because of that. And then on top of the yellow in the center, we have Mustard Seed. And then I went with even one more layer for that and did some spiced marmalade in the center with a nice dark orange. So they're orangey yellow, which is about the same thing that I did for the watercolor background. Now, when I peel up my stencil, look how beautiful this is. Isn't that a fun background? Now, I peeled off my Post-it tape and I realized I wanted to add a little bit extra because my salvaged patina Distress Ink bundle is here. And I felt like my background needed a little extra color. So I'm actually going to go in and just go around the edges of this with the salvaged patina. And can I just say, is there a more perfect aqua mermaid color ever? Oh my goodness, I am in love with this new Distress Ink color. Love, love, love this. Should I do a comparison video? I know I still owe you guys my comparison video. I am going to be working on that this weekend, so stay tuned. I'm hoping it will be up next week. But I was thinking a comparison video of the blue colors would be really, really fun. So I just went around the edges, not over the whole design. Very, very light, but I love that little bit of layer that I've added to this. Okay, our third and final background. We are going to use the Spring Bouquets 6x8 stamp set. I know this one's probably going to be popular. This is in that very popular Simon Says stamp style. There are several other stamp sets that have similar florals to it. These are gorgeous. There's two different floral kind of bouquets in this stamp set. Both beautiful. There's also some sentiments, which I really love. And I'm going to stamp this with clear embossing ink and heat emboss with white embossing powder. I am using my Stamper's Secret tool to help give nice even pressure over my background. I did ink it twice. I've not used this stamp yet, so I felt like I maybe needed to. I don't always, but I wanted to make sure that I got all the detail. Then we're going to sprinkle on white embossing powder. And we're going to go back to our Tombow markers. I almost went and grabbed my Zig markers, but I decided at the last minute not to. I did not want to pull in another coloring medium into this video. It's already quite long. You can definitely get similar results with your Zig markers. I know you guys have probably seen me use my Zig markers for similar cards in the past. I am using all the same colors. I did pull a couple of extras, and those will be shown across the screen here when we get to that for this background panel. The other thing is this is stamped and embossed on Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I don't think I mentioned this, but on our first card panel that also was Bristol Smooth cardstock. All right, I know it's so hard to see. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. We are going to start by laying down our dark color, which is sap green, and then blending out with chartreuse, and then taking a water brush pen and pulling that color out even further. This gives us a nice watercolored effect and look. I really, really love this. I did try to go and do a lot of the greenery right off the bat. There are going to be some areas I miss. That is pretty typical. When you're working white on white like this, it can be kind of hard to see where you're at. And so I just kind of try to fill in areas, and then as I get the rest of the flowers colored, I can go back in and grab any of those leaves and things that I may have missed. I just love how versatile these Tombow markers are. I know they've been around forever. Maybe you're new to crafting. They are a great economical option if you're just getting started. So definitely check out some of my most recent videos to see all the different things you can do, because as you can see, this is more of a watercolor effect. The first card was kind of a watercolor effect too, but just used in a different way. I use them for no line coloring without water. You can use them on watercolor cardstock, Bristol Smooth cardstock. They are just really, really fun. Next, we're using Peacock Blue and Lilac for our next flower. I will say I love this color combination on the first card because the flowers were kind of small. For the big card, I don't think we're going to get enough of a difference in color. I mean, you do get a little of that effect, but it's just not as dramatic as I would like. So I end up coming back after this ink has dried a little bit, and we're actually going to use or add in a little jet blue to darken near the base of the flower petals, and it makes a world of difference. We'll come back to that in a little bit though when this is dry. Next we have Pink Rose and Carnation, and it's going to make the most beautiful pink rose. Oh my goodness. I don't do this very often, but I was coloring this and my daughter stopped by the house, and I looked at it when I was done coloring this image and I was like, oh, that's really pretty. And I don't know why, it just struck me. I love the flower. The detail is amazing, but I like this color combination. I don't know if I've used this exact one. I often will use baby pink, I think, with a darker pink, but I like the pink rose. Maybe it's in the name. Pink rose and carnation. They both have a flower name to the colors. But I just loved how this turned out. Just gonna blend all those petals. So, so pretty. Now I did my yellow flower next, and unfortunately I was talking to my daughter still, and I didn't realize my video camera turned off. So you're going to see me lay down parts of the color, and then all of a sudden it's going to be all the way colored. So just pretend that you saw me add in the light yellow and then blend all of that out. It's kind of a yellow orange, I guess. For this little flower, kind of looks like a magnolia flower, I think. I am using port red and baby pink. These are two brand new colors. I did not use these anywhere else on my other two cards, but with this particular flower, I really felt like I needed to add something different. I didn't want to reuse one of the other color combinations. You'll also notice the port red was used very, very sparingly. The baby pink was only used to pull the color out a little bit, and lots of water. Here's that jet blue color that I was talking about that I'm going to add in down near the base of the petals on our lilac flower. I like that a lot, so just going to add little areas or little touches of that and then pull the color out. I only worked a few petals at a time. I felt like it gave me a little bit better control that way. But it does add some nice depth and dimension to these flower petals. We have a couple of flower centers left, and I think maybe, I'm not sure, I might have done one of the leaves that I missed off camera. So we used the yellows for the center of the purple flower, and then we used our port red for the center of the magnolia flower, and then I just buffed any ink that might be sitting on top of that with a microfiber cloth. And I'm going to take my rainbow blending little finger tool brush here and that same salvaged patina distress ink, and we're going to ink up the edges. No masking required. I'm just really trying to hit the edges. I'm not going to go over the flowers really hard or anything like that. Just kind of pulling that color out, and it really makes the floral image pop. Love, love, love this stamp set, you guys. I know you guys are going to love it too. So here are my backgrounds, and let's do the finishing touches. I am going to use different die cut sentiments for all of these. This first one is the How Amazing You Are, which the sentiment is never forget how amazing you are. That is beautiful. The shadow color or shadow color. The shadow outline was die cut from vellum. Then I did die cut the sentiment from white cardstock, and I'm going to adhere that right to that vellum piece. Then on top of this, I am going to die cut the sentiment again from Simon Says Stamp slate cardstock. And then we're going to adhere this on top, but slightly shift it to the right. That's going to give a really nice little teeny tiny white shadow outline. Back in my scrapbooking days, this was one of my biggest tips, I guess, that I did all the time when die cutting with my Silhouette die cutting machine. I absolutely love a little shadow. I have not done it a lot in card making. I do it sometimes, but I didn't really love the white die cut sentiment, and I didn't really love the darker sentiment. And by doing this, I ended up really, really liking it. Plus, it's very legible because it's in a darker color. I also picked slate gray on purpose and not black. That's because the black to me just did not feel springy. It was just a little too harsh. And I think the dark gray is a nice in-between. It's obviously not too light, so it's still very legible, but that gray softens it up just enough. Then I am taking a little sentiment strip. These sentiment strips are the Encouraging Words sentiment strips. And all of my sentiment strips for all three cards are from this. And we are going to piece together our foam adhesive so that there isn't foam adhesive where it overlaps some of the die cut letters. That's going to help it lie a little bit flatter. So I'm piecing that together. I think there's about 2 pieces here. And then that's going to be popped up at the top. And we're going to adhere this entire panel to a white side fold card base. We'll embellish with some little heart accents here in a minute. I'm using an acrylic block to help hold it flat. Then we have the Swoopy thank you for our Slimline card. This is a gorgeous new thank you. I know you guys are going to love this one. Same thing, vellum outline, white die cut, slate gray die cut on top, slightly shifted so it have that little tiny bit of a shadow, a little encouraging words, sentiment strip, I value your love and friendship. My hope is all 3 of these cards are going to go out in next week's Mail It Monday to one lucky person. So if you haven't signed up to be part of my Mail It Monday, every week I send out 10 cards randomly. I just pick from my list and send out some happy mail. So definitely check that out. There is a link in the description box below to sign up for that. I trimmed down my background to 4 by 5¼ inches to leave a nice little white border all the way around. And we're using the Wishing You Joy sentiment die cut exactly the same way as the previous 2 cards. Just wanted to show another greeting. And then happiness looks good on you right below that. I love that little sentiment too. Now, the florals are the stars of the show for all of these cards. I did want to add a little embellishment, and I am adding, you guessed it, some little hearts because I love little hearts. Oh, I must have done my envelopes first. We'll talk about the hearts in a minute, you guys. Sorry about that. So for our Slimline envelope, I'm going to go back to my XL bouquet, and I'm trying to figure out the best placement here, and I'm flipping my stencil this way and that. When I get it the way I want, I'm just going to tape it down, and we are going to stencil it just like we did our card background. I am not going to be inking any edges of my envelope, however, but we are going to do these flowers. And I purposely didn't do it all over the envelope. That way I still have quite a bit of room up above to write the address. And the colors look a little bit different on a colorful cardstock. So this also gives you an idea if you wanted to start with a lemon chiffon colored background. This is what it would look like. I had considered it. I will tell you I'd considered it. I have really been drawn to yellow for whatever reason the last few weeks. And I love how the stenciling looks anyway over a colored cardstock, especially a light yellow. But I like how it's not exactly the same since this is a colorful envelope, but we're pulling all the same colors and it just creates a really pretty matching set. This would also be a really fun background for a Mother's Day card. I should have mentioned that as well with the cards. All of the cards today, you could very, very easily swap out the sentiment. Mother's Day is coming up. They could make sympathy cards, spring cards, anniversary cards, wedding cards, birthday cards, you name it. All you have to do is swap out your sentiment. There a minute ago, you might have seen that whole stack of rainbow brushes on screen just briefly there. I love, love, love it. These are really wonderful. The small size makes stenciling a breeze because you're not having to mask anything off. So there is the first set all finished. Next up, now we're going to embellish. I guess I wanted to take a little break before I did my final 2 envelopes, and they are super simple. I did the more detailed one first. These next 2 are very simple. We're going to add some little heart accents to the cards. I actually didn't like that, so I'm going to pop that off before the glue dries. I was like, that doesn't look right at all. So let's grab a couple of dark pink hearts, and we're just going to put those on either side of that light pink one. I think the Slimline card just has 2 little hearts down below the sentiment strip, and then I did do 3 on the aqua background. Let's grab our next one. Got a little bit bigger heart. And then a couple of smaller ones up here. Really, really simple. And then finally, we'll just do these 2 hearts here. I even did a red one. I really liked how the red looked. And then a little light pink. Okay, for the Audrey blue envelope, I was only going to stamp the outline image on 1/2, or like the bottom half of the envelope, but I loved how it looked so much that I went ahead and stamped it, flipped my envelope around and stamped it on the top as well. So it leaves this great little space in between that you can write the address on. This is also, I want to make mention of this. I know I did in my Mama Elephant koala video. I did an envelope where I did something similar. I am stamping with cotton white StazOn ink. I am not stamping and embossing. And the reason is I don't like embossing envelopes. I love how it looks. I love the white outline. But I have found that the embossing really warps the envelope, and I don't like that. So I found that the cotton white StazOn ink works really well. I will say you're going to need a StazOn ink cleaner to clean your stamp, which I will do really good and wipe it clean with a microfiber cloth. I've also used this rounded rectangle die to die cut a post-it note to use as a mask. This is the envelope that I said I'm going to do an all over stamped background. I mentioned it at the beginning of the video. This one, I really couldn't create a similar background without, you know, coloring all those areas, and I'm just not going to do that for an envelope. So what I did was I created this little mask with a rounded rectangle die. And then I'm going to ink up the entire background with duckling ink for a tone-on-tone background. And then peel up my little mask, and it leaves this perfect little spot for our address. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video showcasing several ideas for creating spring floral cards. The supplies I used to create my cards are listed and linked below the video here on YouTube. Here is another video featuring Simon Says Stamp products that you might be interested in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel and hit that notification bell to never miss a new card making video. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and we'll catch you next time.